Hey everybody, this is Thomas Trimmingham, Director Marketing for M&R Companies, and today I got Colin with me from. Now where are you? Where part of the country are you coming from, Colin?
We're in Bozeman, Montana.
Mosman, Montana. That's right. So you're up north. I knew you were from somewhere that was cold, so I'm like looking at it going, um, and because the last show we were at, I think was Long Beach, and I remember kind of chatting with you a little bit about some of your background, but maybe you could fill the folks in here, like how did you get started in printing?
So Lone Mountain Printing actually started 10 years ago. We would have celebrated our 10-year anniversary in June, but COVID kind of sacked our plans pretty bad. So I started, I was actually employed by a company because I was jobless, and I got started as an assistant, cleaning screens, things like that. And 6 weeks after he started, after I started there, he said, "Hey, I'm closing. I got a
Hmm.
job elsewhere. It's making more money than my business is. I'm closing shop." And so he closed, and he offered me, he said, "Hey, you can buy me out for all this." And I was like, "No, none of your equipment is good." So I went and found some funding to get the equipment myself, and I started by myself in a one-car garage with a manual press, a little dryer. I was cleaning screens at the local car wash, everything.
That's so funny. I when I first started, I remember being in the winter and we had like this little S10 pickup and we'd pile all of our screens and we'd take them to the local Best Wash and you'd have run out of quarters, because you're trying to make sure it doesn't come onto the foam, because you're trying to rinse them and you're like, don't hit the clicker wrong because they'll go on the foam and your hands are all frozen. God, I mean, I remember those days fondly, but they weren't that fun back then. But yeah, I think a number of printers have been through that. You do what you got to do to get things
Yeah.
done. And so where did you go from there then?
So, and then it was kind of hodgepodge of bouncing from location to location after I moved out of my house. I wanted to have my own space, so I went from location to location. And then I was a manual printer all the way through to about 2014. And in 2014, I bought a second manual and a bigger dryer. And 6 months later, I had to automate. And I bought my first automatic, and it was actually an S-Rock. I went straight to Rock with my automatic because they had one on the shelf. They could get it to me in 3 weeks, and it was easy and
Sure.
convenient.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and then ever since then, it's been kind of some growth, lots of growing pains, planning moves and planning expansions, and then things falling through and not getting it and just trying to scrape by. And it's been great. I mean, and then in 2018, we were the first shop ever to switch from Rock to M&R in
I
2018.
remember. Yeah,
And I think it was a great decision.
yeah. And I mean, for those people out there that maybe don't know, like you were pretty accomplished in water-based printing. Like I think that's in maybe one of the contexts where I first met you, which is at the time, when did you actually start printing with water-based?
I started so I pretty much went 100% water-based printing
Mm-hmm.
the day our automatic was installed. So I've
Hmm.
been printing water-based ink nonstop for 6 years.
I remember
And
that 'cause, yeah, yeah.
4 of those years, we've been exclusive to Virus. And this is exclusive to Virus. Our Virus ink days predate the wet on wet technology that came out a few years ago.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Because I remember um, seeing some of your stuff and then actually reading some stuff about your company too, that you kind of started with water-based before it was maybe popular or
Mhm.
friendly to some degree, I mean, maybe it's a little bit of both, popular and friendly, but yeah, I mean, and so how has water-based changed since you started with it? How do you feel about it?
You know, I don't know if it's more of if the inks themselves have changed. I know that a lot of companies are trying to they're starting to get into water-based inks, but they're trying to make their water-based inks work in a plastisol mindset because they just watch with it. That's the people they want to attract. They said, hey, you can print water-based, just do this with our inks and just print the way you print. And I think that's the wrong direction. because there's so many things you can do with water-based inks that you'll never be able to do with plastisol. But if you always have a plastisol mindset, you'll never be able to really push or achieve that direction.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind diving in a little bit. We can go in a little bit in the weeds, like what types of things, you know?
So one of the biggest things is with water-based inks is your ability to play with transparent color. So all inks in water-based that we use, specifically with virus, we love the fact that our inks are fully transparent. So that gives us the ability to layer and tone and do things that you just can't do in plastisol. Like we have some prints that we've done that we actually go in and it'll be a sim process or a 4-color process to a dark garment, and we'll have a channel that is just 0.5% of black pigment and clear, and it's purely just for toning certain colors, where if we were to do that in plastisol, we'd have to print a separate color for all those, where this black toner can come in and tone 5 or 6 different colors all at once.
Yeah,
you couldn't really do that
yeah.
in plastic.
Yeah, it's almost like glazing with oil paint or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Along those lines. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that where that comes into play is particularly interesting is if you're over printing on a special effect or something and you want to tint it, or you want to get something where you don't necessarily want to lose some of the other things. So yeah, and I think that's a great point. That's a great point, Colin.
And I think
go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of the other biggest things that I love about it, and that's one of the reasons why we're so dedicated and so set ourselves behind working with virus, is the fact that we have no dot gain on press. So if we print the first color in 4 colors that we're printing on wet, we print one, we print a 20% dot. By shirt 10,000, that's still a 20% dot, because our inks don't mash and they don't blend and they don't squish the way plastisols do or other water bases do. So we're maintaining higher structured details throughout an entire production. Our prints don't change over time.
Yeah, that's a big deal, because as you know, with plastisol, especially if you're printing inks that are kind of low viscosity, or that you end up chasing it. You're chasing your halftones all the time, and you're wiping your screens. A couple dozen shirts, especially if you're trying to stretch things. And then I played that with that plenty of times at Harley, where it's like you try to figure out, okay, put a little card in between the shirts where you should check this, see if you need to wipe the screens, type of thing. And not ideal. It's like ideal is managing it on the print side for sure. So yeah, I think those are all really good points. I mean, one of the areas, and I think I've talked about this with some other folks, but that I became a little more enamored with water-based, whereas maybe I wasn't as much. I just had too many years of plastisol to shake off, I guess, was I started looking at the specialty, and man, I'll tell you what, the specialty it's legit now. Like, it wasn't originally though. I remember, like, they didn't have a lot, but now.
No, and that's been one of our biggest driving forces behind our sales, is we're willing to push our specialty limits with pearlescence, or the fact that we can have 8 different powders that we mix into a clear to make metallics, and we can then blend those to make other metallics, or the abilities that we can then print puff or suede underneath whites to give texture to the prints. We can do so many of these great things that you can't really do in plastisol, because the plastisol doesn't have that give to be able to do it, because you're printing such thick deposits. I mean, I think when we print now, I think our standard EOM in our screens is 10% to 8 to 10% in all of our screens on our EOM, where most people are in the 18 to 22.
That's right. And I think there was a lot of misconceptions. Like what do you think is some of the most common myths for water-based, just for fun, because I definitely think one of them is, well, I'll tell you one of them, and that's that I know of, and that's that you have to print like 32 DPI if you're going to do halftone dots for water-based. I still hear
No,
that once in a while. I know you're shaking your head, but I still hear that once in a while in forums and stuff. It's
and
not.
this is going to blow everybody away. And I know that when this video posts, there's going to be people who are commenting about this. You can't do it. Our standard halftone in this shop where I work and everything we do here at Lone Mountain Printing, our standard halftone is 81 LPI.
That's sweet. That's a lot of detail, man. I like that. Yeah.
And so color blends are phenomenal. Skin tones, perfect. I mean, it just, at that point, your eye can actually blend dots together better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, were you always really into the details? Because I
You know,
noticed some printers kind of did you pick that up, or were you always that way?
I've always been a very detailed person, but when I started really learning how to print from Beppe,
Hmm.
and when I really started learning that and having a great mentor that he is, my whole thought process changed.
Mm.
My whole thought process went from being an American printer printing promo and every day to focusing on high fashion, high dollar retail, specific qualities that have to be met. My whole mindset changed.
Yeah. I think that's a great point too, Colin, is like, I don't think every printer has a coach or a mentor, you know? I mean, most printers maybe don't even really put a value to it. And it's interesting because I just had an interview with Charlie Toblieb, and he's been around this industry forever. And it was one of the topics we mentioned is that to some degree, every printer could use a little bit of inspiration, or they could use to look at somebody that's maybe a level up, that can help them out.
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest things there is that so many of those printers don't want to share their knowledge because they
Yeah,
think it's detrimental to their advantages. Or the people that do have that knowledge, they want to monetize it. They're not gonna give it away for free.
right.
But the knowledge that I've learned from Beppe goes so far beyond just technique. It literally goes into the realms of science.
Yeah. Well, and it's a mindset too,
It
right? It's a
is.
mindset that you won't accept a, a level of quality below a certain level. Like I've seen it before, and it's funny. It's almost similar to martial arts in a sense. I've trained with a variety of different people, but one of the people I trained with was basically like, Brazilian, and they just said, if you're not going to do it at this well, then you just shouldn't even do it. And it's just kind of like you can get into that where I think there's a value to that to a degree in printing, because I mean, we all know printers that are like, just don't even flash it, just print it, send it out. You know what I mean? Or if it's good enough, it's good enough if it doesn't come back. You know, you know what I mean, right? It's like,
It's that saying for years where people used to say, well, there's retail white or there's perfect white.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, that was the saying. And again, I'm not talking bad about printers per se. And like there's all different types of levels of having to get things done. And
Yeah,
and and to some degree, we kind of create our own standards by what we're willing to accept, right?
yeah.
But and then so when did you actually start like traveling and maybe representing Virus to a degree? Was that something you started formally, or did you start kind of
Yeah,
just?
so I actually now on the side, it started in 2017
Hmm.
where I helped them with technical side of things in the US. I was kind of their technician that would answer phone calls, help them with things, stuff like that. But that's kind of grown a lot more to helping them kind of oversee and understand the US market a little bit better because the mindset is so much different and trying to adapt the sales directions and how to handle things. And I absolutely love it. I mean, it gives me the opportunity to pass on my knowledge the way Beppe passed his on to me.
Right.
And I always love helping people learn, getting through the printing process, helping through the tough spots.
Hmm.
And it's been a great partnership. I mean, I actually helped them develop a whole line of inks for the US. And I helped them launch what they call a flagship program now,
Hmm.
which is kind of like their version of influencers.
Mhm.
So if you believe in virus, you're dedicated to virus, you can become a flag shop, which gives you some benefits. But it kind of works as their ability to market of being, hey, these shops are exclusive to our products. They're printing with it every single day. Rather than you see all the shops out there right now that are so much of, oh, we use little bits from here, little bits from here, little bits from here, and that just gets us by.
Right, right. So let's just maybe switch gears a little bit and talk about equipment. So in regards to what's your like standard, what would you say is an average amount of colors per print for you? And what's your
Oh,
setup times? And what do you consider a standard as far as that goes?
I think our average color count actually, I believe, is 6 to 7 colors.
Hmm.
Like I absolutely jump for joy when we print black on white, which is like once in the blue moon. So
Yeah.
our average color count's about 6 to 7 colors for everything we do, which translates to we're about 5 minutes per color on total setups.
So what is some features of what press are you printing on typically? What's your most common one
So
that?
we've got a 14 color Gauntlet 3,
Okay.
and then we also have a custom 10 color 16 station striker.
Okay. Okay. What do you think as far as moving forward for you and your shop and next year and all that? I mean, I know it's hard to predict, but what has this whole experience been for you?
Surprisingly, COVID hasn't really put a damper on us.
Hmm.
One of our largest clients went quiet because they're a mall store chain, and they were doing almost 20 grand a month with us, and they just disappeared because all their stores closed.
Yeah.
And so we adapted, but I mean, we're actually beating our sales numbers this year already. So we're actually doing well. Our biggest challenge has been staffing. The
Yeah.
whole extra unemployment money that people were receiving, I understand that people wanted extra help, but it was worse off for people like us because like we did from June 1st to the end of August, we're almost 160,000 imprints.
Hmm.
And I think that's across like probably almost 100 to 200 different designs in that timeline.
Wow.
We had one order that was 14,000 pieces and it was 37 different designs. So it's just, it was hard because we just couldn't find the staffing that we really needed. That like last summer, we had 10 people working all summer. This
Right.
summer, we had to scrape by with 6
Hmm.
because we just couldn't find anybody.
Yeah. That's such a
And
strange thing. Yeah.
it's been a little bit better now, but I don't really predict that we're going to slow down very much for this year, nor do I think we're going to slow down next year because I really don't think I don't think we're going to go through what we did this year. I think too
Yeah.
many people understand that it's too fragile to make everybody shut down their companies again.
And then that's, we can hope. I mean, I hope that it isn't required, but I also hope that, everybody's safe, because it's a weird, it's a weird thing to navigate. I've talked to dozens of people now just directly about, and it's such a weird kind of slice between, there's some places that are completely booming, and then there's
Yeah.
other companies where they're literally just on the verge of just locking the door,
We have 3 printing companies that came to us because they had to completely shut down their production facilities.
Yeah.
They couldn't survive. Now they're still afloat. The business is still working, but they're not doing their own production because they can't afford to have the overhead anymore.
Right. And
So
that's, yeah.
it's been tough. And I mean, I almost had 2 other shops come on board that we had to print, that we were going to print for because we stayed open Montana, where they were trying to get, everybody else was closing, and it was just a total nightmare.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope some year to get up there to see you guys. Otherwise, we can look forward to next year, maybe either Long Beach or shortly after one of the other shows, and maybe the next training event we get a chance to get Beppe out to Roselle. We can hang out a little bit, and I can see the latest developments for your printing skills. You come wow us a little bit. Where should people, if people have questions or they want to reach out to you, maybe see some of your stuff, where's a good place to find you?
we do our best to keep on top of our Instagram page, which
Okay.
is just mountain printing all spelled out. And we try to do a lot of posts of like prints, but also we try to post a lot of like the press actually printing and showing like everything that's working, so people see from the start to finish of like shirt going on, blank, getting a view of it being printed as it goes around and seeing what it like when it comes off at the end. So we like to showcase that, to show that Waterbase can be printed anywhere. In the summertime, our shop is 100 degrees and it's probably sub 10% humidity. And everybody has that myth that Waterbase only works in humidity.
Yeah, not anymore, that's for sure. So,
Nope.
well, I would really want to respect your time. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with us, and send us a couple of shots of some of your art and your shop. We'd love to see some inside of your shop, some photos and stuff, and we'll throw them up and tell everybody what you're all about. So thanks again. Thanks again for your time.
Appreciate it. I'll work on getting some photos over to you.
All right, sounds good.